Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating source material today. It's from Patty McCord's book, Powerful, looking at the lessons from building that pretty unique culture at Netflix.
That's right. And what we want to do in this deep dive is really try and, cut through the noise, unpack the core principles she talks about for building a culture that's, well, high performance, but also adaptable because things change so fast now.
Exactly.
Mm.
And it's important, I think, to see this not just as like a history of Netflix, though the stories are great.
Oh, they are vivid.
Yeah, but more as a guide, maybe even a bit counterintuitive for leaders anywhere, really. Any size company facing these kinds of challenges.
And her core argument, it's kind of radical, isn't it? It's not about adding more systems, more bureaucracy.
No.
It's the opposite. It's about focusing on basic behaviors, discipline, and actually stripping away policies to get speed and agility.
Removing things, not adding them. Okay, so let's dive in. The first big principle, the one that seems to underpin everything else, treat people like adults.
Right. And McCord's fundamental belief here is that the biggest motivator, it isn't the incentives, the bonuses, the fancy perks.
The ping pong tables.
Exactly, not those. It's the chance to actually contribute something meaningful, to tackle a real challenge and do it alongside other really talented people.
That feels, yeah, fundamentally different from how traditional management often works, right?
Yeah.
With all the focus on objectives, reviews, rewards, assuming things stay static.
Which they just don't anymore. And she has that great line, problem finders, they're cheap.
Yeah.
The point is, you hire smart people because they love solving problems. So give them hard problems and great colleagues. That's your incentive structure, basically.
And there's that intense story from Netflix itself, the 2001 layoff. .com bust, company nearly bankrupt.
Yeah.
They had to let go a third of their people.
Yeah, a really tough time. But then something unexpected happened. DVD player prices dropped. The business just took off.
So the people left, the remaining two-thirds, suddenly had to do like twice the work.
Just to keep up. And here's the completely counterintuitive part. McCord says they were actually happier.
Happier. Doing double the work with fewer people.
It sounds crazy, but yeah. Tackling that huge challenge, that existential threat, with a smaller, super focused group, it unleashed this incredible sense of purpose. It really hammered home for them the power of hard problems and great colleagues.
So that experience, it's sort of proved that clear, constant communication about the actual business challenge works better than just adding more rules.
Exactly. When people understand the stakes, what really needs to get done, they figure it out. They prioritize. They don't need endless approvals.
Which leads perfectly into the second principle, doesn't it? Everyone needs to understand the business.
Absolutely vital. If you're taking away the safety net, the bureaucracy, you have to replace it with something. And that something is clear, continuous communication about the business context, the challenges, who the competition is, all of it.
People want that, don't they? They don't just want, free lunch. They want to learn to understand how their piece fits into the whole puzzle.
Yeah. McCord contrasts it with her time at Sun. Huge HR department, like 370 people, but kind of disconnected from the core business. More focused on perks, keeping people happy. What she called happy face HR.
Versus Netflix, where HR, where she was right there on the executive team, deeply understanding the strategy and helping everyone else understand it too.
And the big test was that shift from DVDs by mail to streaming. That was enormous.
Huge. Because the old model relied on late fees, right? Like Blockbuster.
Right, that was their gas, as she put it. The new subscription model. No late fees, huge upfront costs for content, hoping for future revenue. It was scary.
So everyone, top to bottom, had to understand why they were making this risky bet.
Yeah, they built what she calls a heartbeat of communication. Early on, Reed Hastings and McCord would meet every 10 new hires, walk them through the business, the strategy, that became the seed for the culture deck later.
And that evolved
into things like new employee college. Apparently, an employee, Cindy Holland, pointed out executives gave these detailed quarterly updates to investors.
But not their own people.
Exactly. So they started having department heads do similar presentations for new hires quarterly.
And that story about the engineer questioning Ted Sarandos about content windowing.
Oh, that's brilliant. The engineer just asks, why do we release shows episode by episode? It seems stupid.
Direct.
And Ted realizes he doesn't have a good customer-focused answer. That question apparently stuck with him, and years later, it played into the decision to drop whole seasons at once.
Wow. It really shows If someone seems clueless, maybe they just haven't been told what they need to know.
It's usually a communication failure from leadership, yeah.
Yeah.
And this applies everywhere, even customer service reps.
You mean teaching them the business side?
Yeah, teach them to read a P&L, understand customer acquisition costs, lifetime value. The
Huh.
source mentions data like 78% of people ditching a purchase because of bad service.
That costs billions.
Exactly. And bad experiences spread way faster than good ones. So those reps need to know their interactions directly hit the bottom line, the company's reputation.
It makes sense. Public companies share all this stuff on earnings calls anyway. Why hide it internally?
Her point exactly. Maybe hold an earnings call just for employees. Or just tell them to listen to the real one.
So perks are okay, but the best opportunities are the ones that deepen understanding, like debating the competition, not just, team-building games.
Right. Understanding the business and the customer, that's the real value. And her test for this,
The break room test.
yeah. Ask anyone, randomly, what are the 5 most important things the company's working on for the next 6 months?
And they should know them.
Know them, ideally use the same words, same order. That's when you know the communication's working.
Okay, so if everyone understands the business and you're treating them like adults, that creates the space for the next principle. Practice radical honesty.
Right. And the core idea here is, look, being transparent, telling people the truth respectfully, it's not cruel. It actually builds trust. Adults can handle it. They want it.
The internal mantra was, have you said this to their face?
That was the filter. So much more efficient than, office politics, backstabbing. She calls that using a dull knife. Just takes longer and makes a mess.
Honesty helps people grow, too, right? And get
That's
different
right.
ideas out there.
Definitely. There's that example with Eric Colson, who became a big deal in data science there. He talks about getting feedback early on. Colson, you're not good with communication.
Ouch.
Yeah, it stung. But because it was direct, truthful, he could reflect, work on it, and he actually came to appreciate it.
The delivery matters, though, presumably.
Hugely. Focus on specifics, offer solutions maybe, take the emotion out. Most people, if the tone is right, want to know how they're perceived.
And has to start at the top, like the executive team doing that start, stop, continue feedback exercise openly.
Yeah, that vulnerability. Seeing leaders give and receive direct feedback publicly, that's what makes it spread. It becomes normal.
They even had a feedback day, right? Start, stop, continue for everyone.
And the surprising thing there, initially, they tried anonymous feedback. The engineers pushed back. They were like, we attribute our code. We should attribute our feedback. They wanted to own it and know who was saying what.
Interesting. So attributed feedback actually became more thoughtful.
Apparently so. Knowing the source gives context. Anonymous feedback, McCord argues, kind of sends the wrong message, like, be most honest only when hidden.
Yeah, that doesn't build trust. And leaders admitting mistakes. That's huge, too.
The Reed Hastings story again. Debating Tom Willer about Facebook sharing. Reed was strongly for it. Tom had data against it. They tested it.
And Tom was right.
And Reed publicly said, look, I argued hard against this, but Tom was right. Great job. That builds massive psychological safety.
And the source mentioned a study. Companies with honest feedback cultures.
Had something like a 270% higher return over 10 years. Huge difference.
Plus, transparency makes it harder to, rewrite history later if things go wrong.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've got understanding, honesty. Now you need the 4th principle. Debate vigorously.
This isn't just arguing, is it?
No. It's described as fierce, combative in that beautiful, intellectual way. It's about arguing intensely to understand the other person's smart viewpoint, grounded in facts and mutual respect, not personal attacks.
So you need people with strong opinions based on facts.
Okay.
Have an opinion, take a stand, be right most of the time.
Right. But also be wary of people who are just really good at persuading, even if the facts aren't there. Eloquence isn't truth.
And data. Crucial, but not the whole story.
Exactly. Data is the basis for good questions, McCord says, not the final answer. You still need that debate, the qualitative insight, the judgment.
Ted Sarandos called it being data-informed, not data-driven. Like with House of Cards, they had data and talent. But orange is the new black.
That was more about the creator's vision, apparently overriding some of the data or existing rules. Because viewer data can be limited, right? Especially in new markets. It only shows you what people watched based on what was available.
And data can be used as a shield, too, to avoid making a tough call.
Yeah, or people get attached to their own data. There's that funny story of the HR software person.
Oh, yeah, covered the whiteboard in charts, but couldn't say what the data was for.
Just HR will finally have data. Like, data itself was the goal. Metrics need to be debated, flexible.
And the ultimate filter for the debate should be.
The customer. How does this help the customer exactly? That question apparently cut through a lot of internal noise.
And it requires selflessness, right? Arguing for the company, not your ego.
Yeah, and recognizing others' ideas. Reed remembering that inventory idea from John Ciancuddy years later, even after it was initially shot down. Good ideas sometimes need revisiting.
They actually orchestrated debates.
Yeah. Reed made the heads of marketing and content argue each other's points of view.
Wow, that forces empathy.
Totally. And they held formal debates in their theater, different sides arguing tough issues. Used small breakouts, too, to get everyone talking, not just the usual experts. Because experts can be constrained by knowing what's possible now.
And watching these debates, it's also a way to spot talent.
Absolutely. Judgment, thinking clearly under pressure, articulation, courage. You see it all in a good debate.
Okay, this focus on finding the best ideas in people naturally leads to the fifth principle. Build the company now that you want to be then. Thinking ahead.
Relentlessly focusing on the future. What team will you need then? Not just managing the team you have now.
It challenges basic hiring assumptions, like just filling headcount. Why hire 150 average people if 75 amazing people, paid more, could do better?
Rushing hires is almost always a mistake, she argues. And you can't just assume today's team is right for tomorrow's challenges, especially when you're scaling fast or the market shifts completely.
That founder loyalty thing can be tricky.
Yeah, it's tough. But leaders have to ask, are we limited because our current team isn't the team we should have for where we need to go?
So how do you figure that out? She has that exercise.
The fast forward 6 months exercise?
Yeah?
Yeah. Picture your ideal team 6 months out. What are they achieving? What skills do they have? Define that future state first.
And then look at your current team against that vision.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from just evaluating past performance to identifying future needs, skill gaps, and finding capacity builders, people great at building great teams.
And that leads to the team, not family metaphor.
Which can sound harsh, but the analogy is pro sports teams are constantly evaluating who do we need to win the next championship. Decisions are about performance needed for future success.
So train and promote from within when it makes sense for that future.
Absolutely. If that's the best way to get the performance needed. But be realistic. Sometimes you need to hire externally to get skills or capacity faster, and individuals need to own their development too.
She gives examples, right? Rochelle King becoming a leader in areas she wasn't an expert in because she was a great team builder.
Or Eric Colson, the algorithm guy, turning down management but then thriving when he finally took it on.
And watch out for nostalgia. It's not like it used to be.
That's a red flag for resistance to necessary change. Though she does argue the company's core soul, its DNA, can survive adaptation. Netflix is still edgy, just in a different domain now.
Okay, so if you're focused on the future team, Principle 6 follows. Someone really smart in every job.
This is maybe the most important job for a manager, she argues. Making sure every single seat is filled by the right, highly capable person for that role now.
So retention isn't the main goal.
No, having a great person in every role is the goal. Sometimes that means people leave. Sometimes it means making changes. Be rigorous about evaluating fit for the current needs.
And the best perk isn't the free snacks.
It's the work. Solving hard problems with great people, delighting customers, that's the real reward. She tells that story about the curator question.
Right, and her response was basically, we're here to serve customers, not just make employees happy.
Pretty blunt. Now, money matters, obviously. They had to pay competitively, especially against Google, Facebook.
But they didn't want to just compete on salaryman alone.
Right. They wouldn't even talk numbers until a candidate was basically saying yes, partly to filter out people only motivated by the highest bidder.
And no traditional bonuses.
Nope. Believed adults motivated by the mission don't need them. Their equity plan was different too. Choose your own salary stock mix, monthly vesting.
Monthly? That's unusual.
Yeah, no year-long cliff, and options exercisable for 10 years. And they actually told people to interview elsewhere.
To know their market value.
Yeah, so Netflix could ensure they were paying top of market for the value that person provided to Netflix.
And they didn't like the term a player.
Felt it was too generic. It's about finding a great match for a specific role, a specific team's needs. Someone let go might be a star somewhere else. It's about the fit.
So you have to look beyond the standard resume.
Be creative. Data experts from insurance companies, why not? Focus on problem-solving ability, like Anthony Park, the programmer from the bank.
Quiet, stuttered, but brilliant.
Exactly. Became a VP. Or Christian Kaiser also stuttered, but amazing at making complex things simple. Fit works both
They
ways,
even look for weird patterns, like music interest in data scientists.
suggesting maybe a useful left brain, right brain thing.
Mhm.
And they invested heavily in internal recruiting.
Seeing recruiters as business partners, not just admin.
Absolutely. They had to understand the strategy, the customers, the tech. McCord even suggests maybe a business person should run HR, not just an HR specialist. HR needs to be business literate.
Which connects to Principle 7. Pay people what they're worth to you.
And the to you part is key. It's not just about what salary surveys say for a generic job title.
Because surveys are always looking backward, right?
Exactly. And people aren't widgets. This is a judgment call about the value this specific person can create for your future. Like that engineer with rare skills, what's the cost of not getting them or delaying?
And they decoupled performance reviews from pay.
Huge move. That link forces companies to keep doing reviews even if they're not working, just because raises are tied to them. Separate them and you can fix both.
They also factored in that working at Netflix increased someone's market value.
Right. They didn't want people to have to leave just to get paid what they were now worth, hence encouraging interviewing elsewhere.
And they aimed for top of market, not just a percentile.
Yeah, especially for critical roles. The argument being one superstar might be worth 2 or 3 average performers in those key spots. There's research supporting that intentional non-egalitarianism in critical roles.
How do they handle new hires coming in higher than existing folks?
Honest conversations. Is the new person faster? Could the current person get that rate elsewhere? Face the market reality.
And tackling historical pay bias.
Crucial. Don't base offers on past, potentially discriminatory salaries. If 2 people are equally good for a $160K role, offer them both $160K, even if one was making $130K and the other $150K.
McCord's response to the CEO worried about lawsuits.
Was brilliant. The real liability is being wrong, not admitting it and fixing it.
They also weren't fans of signing bonuses.
Saw it as magical thinking,
No.
inflates year 1 pay, causes issues in year 2, just pay the salary you need to pay.
And be transparent about the why behind pay differences.
If you can explain it openly, it reinforces the performance culture. If you can't, maybe the rationale is flawed. Pay for contribution and market value, not a review score.
Okay, brings us to the last principle, number 8. The art of goodbyes.
This sounds potentially cold, but it's about making necessary changes efficiently and aiming to be a great place to have come from. People should be better off for having worked there.
Requires employees constantly thinking about their own Fed too, right?
Yeah. Do my skills and passions match where the company is going? And frequent feedback is key here, making annual reviews less important, maybe unnecessary.
Like that hockey coach analogy. Scotty Bowman.
Meeting players every 10 games with stats feedback. That regular, real-time conversation is so much more valuable. If annual reviews aren't adding business value, she says, fight to get rid of them. Try a pilot, like GE did moving to an app.
And she really goes after PIPs, performance improvement plans. RIP the PIP.
Yeah, her view is they're often just CYA documentation, not genuine attempts to help. Often the issue isn't performance in terms of effort, it's a mismatch. The role changed, the needs changed, maybe it was a hiring mistake.
So have the honest conversation instead. About fit, about team needs.
It's hard, yes, but better than pretending. Frame it non-judgmentally. People usually appreciate the truth, even if it's upsetting initially.
Because dragging out a PIP might actually hold someone back.
From finding a place where they can succeed, like that guy who struggled at Netflix but landed great at Apple. PIPs can work, she concedes, if the goal is real improvement and it's achievable. But be honest about the purpose.
And people sue, she argues, not usually because there wasn't a PIP, but because they weren't told the truth along the way.
Exactly. Openness, while hard, is often a relief.
Yeah.
She also pushes back on just focusing on engagement.
As low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. High performance needs the right talent in the right role, not just effort or happiness. It's about coaching everyone, managers and employees, to have these open conversations. McCord even talks about her own exits, leaving one place proactively, having to leave Netflix eventually. It takes courage to see and act on the truth.
And threading through all this is that idea about HR.
Being business partners,
Yeah.
really understanding revenue, competitors, tech disruption, product development, not just policy police.
Managers need to see them that way, and leaders need to invest time explaining the business to HR.
It pays off. And her final thought on power. It's potent.
That people already have it.
Yeah, leadership's job isn't to bestow power, it's to see the power people bring and then just get the bureaucracy out of the way. Unleash it.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. The core message from Powerful, it seems, it's pretty revolutionary for a lot of places. Building that high-performance, adaptable culture, it's not about more rules.
No, it's about these fundamental principles. Treat people like adults. Radical honesty, vigorous debate based on facts, focus relentlessly on the future team.
Having someone great in every single job, paying them what they're actually worth to your future, and handling departures with honesty and respect.
Right, and it's not like a rigid blueprint. It's presented as principles, things they evolved, experimented with at Netflix, but the ideas, she argues, can apply anywhere you need speed and high performance. Clear the obstacles, let great people do great work.
It's definitely an experiment in trust, isn't it? And discipline. Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. If you could design your company's culture completely from scratch today, knowing what you know about today's environment, aiming purely to deliver an amazing product or service for your customers, what current policies, procedures, or ingrained habits would you simply not create?
Thanks for listening. Visit our library and subscribe below for more book summaries. This has been a Sprint Reads production.